Hello everyone, Jake here. Today I'm going to show you how to sand and polish your resin projects to look like glass. The video that came out last week was a resin shootout with ALUMILITE, Total Boat, and liquid diamonds. We're doing a comparison. One of the things I need to do is sand these as part of the comparison. And that video, I just do it fast forward. This video here, I'm going to go in depth on how to sand and polish your resin pieces. Hopefully you'll get something out of it. I'm going to do a couple of them. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to explain everything on this one, and then I'll time lapse this one for you. And at the end we'll look at all of them and I'll give you my final thoughts on sanding and polishing. So let's get started. I'm going to show you everything you need. Let's go to the lathe and start sanding. First thing I do is I get my little tray for my lathe to put stuff on. You have your piece that you're going to sand, and I always have dust. I don't know if I'm going to use it on this one because I'm going to be talking, but I always have shot vac with a cyclone, and it comes up here, and that collects your dust. And I always, if I'm not trying to talk on camera, I'm always using this, and it works pretty well. The things I'm going to need is sandpaper, obviously, and this is going to be the dry sandpaper. I use the Abranet stuff. It's just it's a pretty much see-through, but it's a net, and you can knock the dust out of it and reuse it. So I got 120, 240, 320, and 400 of the dry. What's important to know is start off around 100. And then we want to get to wet sandpaper as soon as we can. If it's just resin, if there's wood in it that's not stabilized, we probably want to stop there. But we need that, and then the wet sandpaper. I stopped at 400 there, and I like starting the wet at the same place I stopped. So 400, 600, 800, and 1,000. So I'm going to go from 120 to 1,000. Once again, get to the wet paper as fast as you can. And then you'll need some water. And once we get to 1,000, we'll start talking about the polishing part of it. So I'm just going to I'm going to start at 100, and we're going to go through this. Hopefully this don't bore you to death. I'm going to make sure you don't have your lathe on too fast. This one's going to be, the slowest my lathe goes is 600. So that's where I'm at. And we're going to start with the 120. I'll show you what's happening. I'm just going to go over it like this with the machine on, and then I'm going to shut the machine off and go like this, and then it'll become very clear where we need more sanding. So let's start up. So I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go this way while it's not running, and then I'll give you a close-up of what you're looking for. Okay, I think it's pretty clear, and I'll point it out to you. All of these lines, this line right here, that you still see it going that way. This right here, this right here. We need to get rid of those before we move on to the next grit. So there's all kinds of spot on here, and I just roughly did it so it'd be obvious on camera what we're looking for. And it's stuff like this right here, this line that's going this way. We want to get rid of that. And let me go at it again. And these places that are kind of hard to reach, just get in there the best you can. It'll be obvious on those too. You can get it whether you have to wrap this around a pencil or something to get it in there, whatever you got to do. Just get in there until those lines are gone, and it'll be worth the work, I promise. So now let's look again. All of those obvious lines are gone, and that only took us a few minutes. Like on the camera right now, it says it's 12 minutes into this, and you know, probably 10 minutes sanding. So and this is the hardest one. The first grit is the hardest one to do. The rest of them will fly by. So I'll go ahead and blow this off. In between each grit, I'm going to get a paper towel and put some denatured alcohol on it and wipe this clean before I go to the next grit. This feels good, but microscopically, what the human eye can't see is there's grit on there from that. And so we want to get all of that off of there and then start with our next grit. We do that in between each grit. Even when we get to the wet sanding, we still do that. Denatured alcohol, and it looks cool too. It's pretty fun to do. Unless you have a cut on your thumb like I do, and then it doesn't feel so great. So now we're starting off with a brand new clean surface for our next grit. And all we're doing with the next grit is removing the scratches that the last grit left. That's probably going to be good on that grit, and that's only been a couple of minutes on that grit. I'm going to go through the whole process, and I'll probably time lapse the next couple of grits till we get to the wet sanding. .320. So pretty much after that first grit, it's going to be the hardest one. This one, I only took a couple minutes on that, on the 320. It's coming along nicely, and we get to see our progress. This is my favorite part of the whole thing, is getting to see what's in there. We went to 400 on the dry sandpaper. Now it's time to go start. I'm going to start at 400. You can start at the next grit. I like to start at the same grit on the wet sandpaper as you do the dry. So I got 400, 600, 800, 1000. And each one of these grits is only going to take a couple of minutes. Some people they use these micro mesh little pads like this. This particular set goes from 1500 to 12,000. Like, you can do that route. That's one way to do it. But I'm showing you how I do it, and it's going to be, I'm going to sand to 1000, and then we go to abrasive paste, and then we buff it. And I'm going to go through all that with you. Now let me get to wet sanding this thing. I might talk to the first one, and then I'm going to time lapse it again. All I do is dip the sandpaper in there a little bit, get some water on the piece you're sanding. I'll go ahead and fold this piece. Go ahead and turn it on, and let's go. As soon as I get some slurry on there, some slurry on sandpaper, wash it off a little bit, and then keep going until you're satisfied that you're done getting those scratch marks out that way. And just go the opposite direction, just like the dry sandpaper. I'm going to go ahead and dry this off with a clean paper towel. Get the water off of it. Some more denatured alcohol in between each grit, even with the wet sandpaper. You can check your work and clean this off. This thing's looking pretty cool. Next grit, I'm gonna change my water. Look how nasty that looks already. So I'm gonna go ahead and change my water out of there and then come back and do some 600. You're gonna do the exact same sanding as you did with the dry sandpaper. You're gonna change the water in between each one. You're gonna do your denatured alcohol in between each grit. And I'm gonna time lapse, and here we go. So this is 1,000 grit. It's way smooth. I'm gonna get the other one sanded up to this. I'll give you a time lapse of that. I'm gonna do exactly the same thing I did with this one, and then we'll go to the polishing stage. We have all these sanded to 1,000, and now the next step is abrasive paste. Like, once again, you can use those micro pads to sand it up to however far you want to sand it up, and then you put lacquer on it or do whatever you want. That's a good way to do it. Here's how I'm doing it, is with abrasive paste. I'll show you. This is Yorkshire grit. There you go. And how it's hazy right now, this is gonna take all that out. Like if you have, this might sound funny, but you have your headlights on your car that are foggy, this will take it out. It's like a buffing compound kind of, but it's got abrasives in it, so it's another form of sanding, but it polishes at the same time. So you get some of this on there, and you just rub it all over it, and don't be scared to use it. I'm gonna put it on there. When I turn on the lathe, it's going to be slinging stuff off, and I'm going to just work it in there, and you'll be able to see. And I'll stop talking and let's do it. You don't have to use gloves to use this stuff. I'm putting it on there. My fingers are kind of raw from doing all the sanding.
What's that? My fingers hurt.
So I'm going to put gloves on, but you don't have to. So I just get a clean paper towel and I put some on there. And I'll rub it all over this. Just rub it into it. You can already start seeing through that egg a little better. I just get it in there everywhere. It's probably the worst color ever to have on camera, but here we are. I'll show you on the blue one also. So I load up my paper towel a little bit more and stand over to the side, because it's gonna, you know, if you put it on there, right, it's gonna sling a little bit. I have my paper towel loaded up, and I'm just gonna hit it while it's running and work it in there. Normally I keep the lathe running, but I want to talk to you. So if you feel it start to get a little bit dry, put some more on there, and just keep on working it in until you shouldn't feel much. This is abrasive paste. At first you're going to feel it be a little abrasive, you can feel it, and then it's just going to smooth right up, and you just keep on working it in. You can keep doing that until your heart's content. This feels smooth, it looks good. So all I'm gonna do is get a clean rag and I'm gonna wipe it off while it's not running. And then I'll have it running and kind of buff it out. And it'll dull it up a little bit. I'm gonna get all the excess Yorkshire grit off of here. Well, don't be scared of this. Rub it off. We're gonna buff this out afterwards, and anything we make get in there by doing this, we're gonna get off with the buffing wheels. So just make sure we get all of the Yorkshire grit off of here. I think it looks pretty cool. Some new gloves on. I want this to be clean. There's no more Yorkshire grit coming off on the paper towel, so I'm going to put the blue one on here. We're going to do that, and then next time you see me, we're going to be on the buffing wheels, and I'll explain that. Now that we have all these sanded and wet sanded and the Yorkshire grit on them, now we're going to do a three-stage buffing process on it, and I'll get the big buffing wheels out here next, but there's a hard to reach spot in here that the buffing wheels won't get into. So you get buffing wheels like this. You can get them from the store, you get them from Amazon. I'll put some links below, but they make them all shapes and sizes, but this one will get in here just fine. And that black is because I've already done a couple of these, and if these touch metal, they'll kind of turn black, but that doesn't ruin them. So you have triple E compound, the brown stuff, then you have white diamond, that's the second stage, and then you have your wax, this is the third stage. So I'll put all these like this, and I'm just going to show you getting in these nooks and crannies with the drill, and then we'll go to the buffing setup here in a second. Put it in your drill like so. Get a little compound on it. I'm gonna run this the 1800 RPM or so, and we're just gonna spin it and then get this in there. You don't have to cram it in there. You don't have to get crazy. Just let it touch it. So we're gonna have this spinning and this spinning. So you don't need much. It does not take much to polish these. So here we go. That's about all it'll take on the first one. Oh, that sucks. Get some wax on it. This is called a 3-on-1 buffing mandrel from Beal. This is the triple E. The one for the triple E. The brown compound goes on this one, and it says trip on that buffing pad. This one says white diamonds, so that's the white. This one says wax right there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it does say wax, and so that's the one that the wax goes on. These get softer as you go to a finer compound. So this one's the roughest one, this one's the softest one. You can kind of see how fluffy it is. And this one's right in the middle, and this one's a little bit tougher. When you turn it on, these will all gather up, and centrifugal force will make them tall and skinnier. And you're just gonna go and let the buffing wheels do the work. You're not gonna have to push it in there too hard. When you're working with resin, just keep it moving all the time or you will burn it. Just take your time. We've already went through all the trouble of sanding and wet sanding and Yorkshire grit, this is what's gonna show off all your hard work. So just take your time, let these do the work. You're just gonna hold it there and kind of go up against it a little bit, and I'll show you that. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this on and load up these with some compound, and I'll show you that. Easy as that. So I have this red one. I'm just gonna go up against it. Make sure this arrow right here says this is gonna go towards us. So make sure you don't let it get grabbed and thrown out of your hands or whatever. Have a good grip on it. Be smart about where you put it. It's gonna be coming this way, so I'm probably gonna do this side. I'm not gonna put it up here. It's gonna try to kick it off. So just take your time, and this is about to shine right up. Here we go. That's the first one. And it's already better. We'll go to the second one. It's going to get better every time. And if you're going to just repeat the process, make sure you get everything covered and watch it get pretty. And there's the payoff. All the hard work comes down to the last thing is buffing this thing. Pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and do the, it'll have a little bit of fuzzies on here when you're done, but look at that. I'm gonna do the blue one. I made all these things, these egg shapes. They're egg shapes for a resin shootout video. I'll put a link up there in case you missed it. As far as the sanding goes, that first grit is the one that you need to spend the time on and get right. After that, it all goes pretty fast. But that first one, take the time on it, do it right, get your shape right, and then everything will go on from there. I'll put a link to everything I used down in the description below. Go check it out. See what you need, what you might need. And then if you got some information out of this video that you think is useful, hit the like button. Leave me some comments down below. Say hi. And then we'll see you next time. Y'all be good.